Well, hello and welcome to another week's analysis behind the news. You may recall that last week we mentioned Newt Gingrich was supposedly on the top of Donald Trump's VP list. Now, Newt gave some interviews in Chicago regarding this, but the interesting part is where these interviews took place. According to the New American, it was at Dentons-Dechang. Does it mean anything to you? It's the world's largest law firm and a major lobbying force and acquisitions operator for the People's Republic of China. Now, the headline of this article is, Newt Gingrich as VP would bring a big China problem to Team Trump. And the article continues, Dentons-Dechang is positioning itself to be the premier law firm to handle expansion of both outbound investment from China into the United States and inbound investment from the U.S. into China. That outbound investment will mean more and more Chinese buyouts of U.S. companies and assets, such as Smithfield Foods, the Chicago Stock Exchange, the AMC cinema chain, U.S. banking institutions, and more. Do you see where Newt's involvement with this Chinese firm might be a cause of concern for the Trump campaign? Now remember, he is against any trade deals with China. Oh, and who appeared with Newt at these interviews? Former Democratic presidential candidate Howard Dean. You can't make this stuff up. The both of them are senior advisors for Dentons-Dechang. Yet over in China, attorneys who have stepped up to ensure China follow its own rules and laws are being rounded up and detained for several months. And the New American article concludes, so while these truly heroic lawyers are being dispatched to oblivion, Mr. Gingrich and his fellow globalists remain cheerfully, willfully oblivious to their plight, profiting from their oppressors, while continuing to dispense empty platitudes about human rights and liberty. Newt Gingrich's hypocrisy on China and his fiendish flocking for Beijing's communist thugocracy should make him thoroughly toxic to those vetting the VP candidates for Team Trump. Gingrich as running mate would signal either that Trump is dangerously ignorant and naive concerning the ex-speaker's positions and connections vis-a-vis China, or that Trump's campaign rhetoric regarding China is just that, empty campaign bombast. We would also add that Newt's brand of conservatism shows no allegiance to the Constitution, no commitment to the independence of this country, and demonstrates a blatant disregard for the liberty of Americans. In understanding the much larger picture that there are groups working to corrupt, derail, and misdirect the great American experiment, you begin to see that it makes no difference if there is an R or a D next to a politician's name. Remember that it is not Republican versus Democrat, rather it's liberty versus tyranny. And moving on, we have yet another example of the federal government creating a problem and providing a solution that encourages additional government power. For those of you unfortunate enough to have to travel or have to rely on air travel this last week, you may have run into some huge lines. So big that airports were telling passengers to arrive 3 hours ahead of time just so they could make it through the long security lines. However, many passengers who even arrived early missed their flights thanks to the TSA. Now, in an article titled TSA Watchdog Spills Secret Behind Long Airport Lines. This comes from WorldNet Daily, and they report, the TSA claims congressional action has led to the elimination of some 4,500 personnel over the past few years, and the agency simply doesn't have the manpower to keep up. So some large security areas at, say, major airports like O'Hare have been closed. And according to Reality Check with Ben Swan of CBS 46 in Atlanta, 800 American airline passengers missed their flights in one weekend. Now, Mr. Swan reported that Congress has now allocated about $34 million to DHS. $26 million of that to pay for overtime of existing employees, and $8 million to hire 768 additional staff this month. He points to mismanagement of the agency's funds, as well as unaccountability as contributing factors. He suggests firing the TSA, and he'd probably find a great deal of support. Now, WorldNet Daily continues, Airports do have the option to boot the TSA and go with private security. It says in here 15 to 20 airports have already done that and actually perform better when secret tests are conducted to see whether weapons or explosive materials get past security. And they also mention in Canada, all major airports have private screening. So regardless of what does happen, the Department of Homeland Security is following a well-worn path created by the federal government. Fail at a given task and ask for more money to get more government to fix the problem that it itself created. How would that model work in today's business world? It certainly wouldn't. So how does Congress, and why does Congress, expect an unconstitutional agency to fix itself? It's time to stop the security monopoly that the federal government unconstitutionally holds over private security. I don't remember delegating my personal safety to TSA, nor did I cancel my Second Amendment rights. But that's exactly what happens when you enter an airport, isn't it? I'm not sure what part of shall not be infringed they don't understand. But I'm sure that without an educated electorate that elects constitution-obeying candidates, that the spiral of liberty will continue down the drain of tyranny. If you're ready to act, visit jbs.org today for more information on joining. And until next week, we'll see you then.